Okay, so let me just start the.
Listen to Guyana's heart. You can hear it when we speak. It's the sound of six people from the land of the free. Even when we're miles apart, we are joined by the sea. Discover beauty in our culture as we share our history. Guyana speaks true all our way. Guyana, we love this country. Welcome to Guyana Speaks. Welcome to Guyana Speaks.
Wonderful. Welcome, everyone. Just to say that, of course, this event is being recorded, as you should be able to see on your screens. We're very lucky today to have the presence of Arlington Weithers, and we are going to be talking about Arlington's work. And it's unusual. We normally have several people on the panel, but Arlington has got a great deal of work that we'd like to share. Hence, just having one panelist today. But before I go on to that, just to remind you about your housekeeping, asking you to please keep yourselves on mute as it's being recorded. We will come to a Q&A, but before then, feel free always to add any questions to the chat facility, which should be at the bottom of your screen, somewhere in the middle. So you can ask any questions there. Please also make sure that you're identifiable by name. We have had problems in the past with Zoom bombers. So if I can't identify you, I'll move you into the waiting room. I think that's pretty much all on the housekeeping side. In terms of forthcoming events, over to you, Rod.
Or the bazaar. Everyone, most of our regulars here in London have been to the bazaar. We started it back in 2017. So every December we have 20 odd vendors that sell anything from pepper pot to rum, Guyanese food, gifts, stationery, sugarcane. In fact, we've been graced with a vendor that brings in his water coconut. So it's a great event, and it's going to be on the 9th of December. We're still looking for a few vendors, so if you know anyone that would like to partake, let them contact us. And that will run from 11 through to 4 at the central location in Elephant and Castle. So just check our announcements, and you'll be able to get all the details.
Rod, we couldn't hear you then. You froze a little bit.
I was just, did you hear? The location is Elephant and Castle on the 9th December from 11 to 4.
Great, thank you. Just to say, Rod, Bob Cheertow's trying to join, but he can't get hold of the Zoom link. I think he's just registered, so if you could send it to him.
I'll send it right away.
No.
Okay.
I'm seeing your sidebar.
Oh, so you're not seeing my
problem? I'm not seeing literally now the images. I'm seeing your sidebar. It's like, oh, technically, okay. All right, I think I'm back. I'm seeing now Border Bazaar.
You're seeing Border Bazaar. Good.
Got on the screen.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
So then
I'm back on with you then.
You're back on. That's good. I think we've got a little bit of problem with our internet connection today, and I'm not sure why. It's been playing up. So if we have any frozen screens or anything like that, just bear with us. And also just Rod, maybe unless you're going to be speaking, put yourself onto you turn off your video just to help with our
okay. All right,
the internet. But just to say, for anybody who hasn't joined us before, if you'd like to be on our circulation list to hear about future events, please follow us on Twitter at JC Westmus, or email us at guyanaspeaks@gmail.com, or you can follow us on Facebook itself. But that's pretty much it with the the announcements and housekeeping today. So I just want to welcome and introduce our distinguished artist and speaker today, Arlington Weithers. Arlington was born in Guyana in 1948 and arrived in the US in 1969. He studied at the Art Students League in New York in 1970 to 71, and with a full scholarship to the Skowhegan School of Painting and Sculpture, he studied with William T. Williams and visiting artist Klaus Oldenburg in 1973. He later received a BFA from Brooklyn College in 1974, where he studied again with Williams and Philip Perlstein. Weithers lectured, conducted art therapy workshops, and painted murals as an artist in residence for the city of Dallas, Texas in 1980-81. He also began working with digital imaging technologies at their inception and is a master digital printer. He received a grant to support a digital art exhibition at Auburn University, Alabama in 1994, the state's first. And he was an artist in residence at, and I'm going to pronounce this incorrectly, but I'll try, Cosji Mazunte in Mexico from 2003 to 2004. His work has been presented in solo exhibitions all over the United States, and most recently this spring at the David Richard Gallery in New York. It is also included in numerous collections, and for those of you who are in Guyana, you'd be able to see it at the Pegasus International Hotel. So that's pretty much that. What I wanted to do, I think, before we introduce, well, until before Arlington speaks, I'm just going to give you a flavor of the type of artwork that Arlington produces. Arlington is online now, so if there's anything you want to speak to and you want me to pause, do let me know, but I'm just going to go through them quickly. So this was from an...
Okay, since you want me to pause, Whitestone was one painting that was indeed done in Mazunte, which is in the state of Oaxaca, and the shells and stones in this painting is literally from the beach that faces the Pacific Ocean. This painting has so much meaning really for me. My entire Mazunte series, they speak about Mazunte as the equivalent of Stonehenge in Mexico. And so as there, people go to a meditation university, and there was a high energy that I did have literally in Mazunte, and we may have time a little bit later, may talk about spirit guided and painting. Anyway, continue. Okay. So I'm going to go through the pictures that are part of, I think it was called the White Balance exhibition that you did. So these are a few from that. Yeah.
Handwriting on the wall, white horse. And then this is the detail of handwriting. I wasn't sure if it's on the wall or on the world, but and also beyond a white horse. So you can see the scale of the paintings there. And then this one, white pathways, white elder. And that's a side view of the painting. Actually, I think on some of these PowerPoints, you can't see how textured the paintings are, but you can get a sense of it from this. And also Fire Next Time. And then White Convergence. White Genesis, number 2. Dancing on the White. White Alhara, white foreshadowing, green mass clusters, and this is more of the Mazunte series. So you've got the cave entrance, Turtle Liberation, Pirates Pool. This one's called Eruptions. Creatures of the Sea, Starry Night. And this is the one I think you were referencing earlier, where we were talking earlier at the beginning, Green Mountain Gringo. And then I think these are earlier ones. Are they Arlington, the snow event?
Yes.
Leon's Heart, Cry of the Martyrs, Cocoa Haven, Rene's Angel, Mormazunte, this is Rainbow Seeds, and very early one up from 1973, Rene's Place, and this one, Desert Song. And then this is an image from the
collection of the Brooklyn Museum.
Yeah.
These two paintings were on display, and I was singled out by New York Times critic Holland Cotter for my work.
So that's Cranberry Hue, Fractal Lights. I love this one, but primarily because I love the name, Kensington Oval, Sticky Wicket. Dutch Leaching, Lightning Fields, Turtles Cove, and this beautiful as well, Neptune's Cloud. So that's pretty much it from that. So yeah, I don't know, Arlington, if we can hand over to you if you want to talk.
Okay, it's a pleasure to be able to speak with your audience. I am normally shy about speaking about my work, and after seeing the work, the only thing that I'm sorry about is the fact that there is a mystery that happens when you come to see a work in actuality.
Yeah, fantastic.
And it's amazing that the works that you see there, they are called abstract painting, but for me, they are landscapes of the mind. I find myself preparing, as it were, internally a palette in words. I find myself articulating things within the mind. And so when I approach a painting, normally there is no drawing. I begin the painting process by pouring paint. There are times when I've got a blank canvas, and after coating it white, I begin to work on that ground, putting together color and form within the process of my thinking. I want to make paintings that are more like a natural phenomenon. In an earlier conversation I had with Bonita, I was more concerned with still being affected by the land in Guyana, its topography, its sense of light, its sense of color. So even though I left Guyana early, there is this indelible connection still to Guyana. I make nostalgic returns there within the skin of my world. It's interesting that In doing this, though, I love the medium of abstract painting in that it's a way of reaching past the conscious mind into the subconscious, and the things that I'm concerned with within my work becoming a psychological trigger to my viewer. So my work is truly about the environment in Guyana, and for people who may not necessarily know, Guyana, I think, is approximately about 100, 150 miles from the equator. So in Guyana, we've got an equatorial light. So the sense of light and color is different in Guyana as in other places. So in addition to that, we being below sea level and environmentally subjected to water and intense sunshine, you've got sediment settling that occurs within the physical environment in Guyana, and I are using those things to be able to articulate all the concepts. After early doing a drawing of Sleeping Beauty at 6 years old, a teacher told me that I traced it and I didn't draw it and I'm a liar, and so she spanked me and sent me home. My parents were wise, so they took me back to the teacher and asked me to draw this within the teacher's presence. I drew it again perfectly, and she was all flabbergasted that I could, you know, do something so perfectly. My mother, in returning home, says, boy, this thing's got to be in the family because you've got a cousin. His name is Dennis Williams. Some of you here in the listening audience may be aware of him. His work as an artist, also as a writer, plus an archaeologist. So early points of my inspiration in Guyana was now to see a reproduction of a self-portrait of Dennis that was hanging on my wall. So this is an early introduction to my early sources of inspiration. So I was the first, though, now of my immediate family to leave Guyana to come to the US to study art. And so there was a tearing away from Mother Guyana as I left to come to New York to study the Art Students League of New York. And so within my work, you would see fractura, you would see fracturing. I was torn away from Mother Guyana, and you know, socially, culturally, you know, coming to the US, you've got the kinds of separation anxieties that come when you leave your mooring. So my work addresses fracturing, fracture cleavage as another aspect of my work. My work is also concerned with within post, where they use post modernism, fracture, or the fracturing of society are things that I am interested in articulating. In addition to that, my work too would also involve a bit of hieroglyphics. In Guyana, you've got the petroglyphs, the Temeri writings, and even though I hadn't been in the interior, there are ways in which those things affect you within Guyana. Of course, growing up in Guyana before coming out, my most immediate experience of art was, seeing realism among local Guyanese artists. I spent a little time at the Art Students League, not at Art Students League, at E.R. Burroughs. And so you've got a little bit of realism that you see and was exposed to. And so coming from Guyana, where you do a picture of cocoa, of cokers, from the Dutch management of water. You're influenced by images of Kaichur, the sense of waters within my work. So these are things that I also attempt to articulate. So when you look at my work too in its actual presence, you do see signs and symbols that are first connected with those Timeri images within my work. Outside of that too, my work too could be involved with, decoding really a language in the sense that even though my work is really abstract and there are allusions to nature, in essence, what you see within my work still does not really exist at any point in nature, but only from my mind into the painting. I'm also concerned with, now as in the case of now my white paintings, I was concerned with subsuming color. For those of you who've now seen the predominance of my early color work, I have been aggressive in articulating color because it reflects clearly the environment of my childhood. But I'm at a period now, the exhibition I'm having that's on at Wake Forest University Haynes Gallery in Winston-Salem, South Carolina, through the 19th or to the 8th of December, is a work of more monumental proportions in that most of the paintings are 20-foot wide by 9.5 foot tall. And so I was now concerned with not only subsuming color, but dealing with whiteness and all that it entails now here in America. So my work does address parts of the political divide here in America, even though initially my first introduction now to white paintings were a series of paintings that I had seen Donald Locke do at the exhibition area of the USIS Kennedy Gallery in Georgetown. It was something that stayed within my mind, but I was using now white paintings, interestingly enough, antecedents in Guyana, the paintings of Stanley Graves, I felt was political and complex, because what I'm attempting to articulate is images that come to mind. You're reaching back to early past, and all of these things become convergences within the mind as you're beginning to paint. So I was inspired into early white paintings by early works of Donald in Guyana, and now addressing political realities. I'm actually indebted to Stanley in early engagement within politics, within culture. And so my white paintings are a way of dealing now with whiteness and all the different things that extend now from whiteness, in the sense of, as a title, handwriting on the wall, pertaining now to whiteness. I dealing with issues since in Guyana. I, for example, dealt with now words and their meaning. Like, for example, in Guyana, I felt an alien was from Mars until I landed in America and discovered that I was the alien. Or, for example, and so here we've got even the browning of America coming in, and you've got the polarization or antagonism for possibly the browning of America. And I was deciding that I will engage now in a political sense approximately 4 or 5 years ago. And so these white paintings that are large in scale does address still parts of the history of art, where you've had artists here in America doing white paintings. Robert Ryman is one, but there was this Russian artist, Malevich, who was dealing with a supremacist white, thinking now that he could get to a point of purity through painting. So within my white paintings, I'm also, in addition though to engaging in a political sense, I am still concerned too with approaching a sublime. I'm fascinated with eschatology, theological term for like last day events. And within the white paintings, as the title that Juanita showed a little bit earlier, handwriting on the wall, within the whiteness, I am also dealing with concepts of the breaking down of society and decay, you know, pretty much then coming in. So in essence, of course, in handwriting the wall, these are just abstract shapes, yet I was hoping to articulate allusions to biblical notion of handwriting on the wall that was written before the destruction of Babylon. And so for me, work with time and you know, growing up in a biblical sense, being exposed a lot of symbolisms within the book of Revelation, I'm bringing in this abstract way, or making clear statements pertaining to breaking down a society, of course. The Factura also even addresses the breaking down almost within our lives, then in a microcosmic sense. You're dealing with, again, separation and loss within my work. A painting is always worth 1,000 words. I may have also been rambling. If you take a look at my work, it seems as if within the structure of my work, things could be going helter-skelter, yet within even within the white field of my work, what's different about my white paintings over other white painters is still the aggressive surface of whiteness. It's not just a plain white. It's still evident despite the PowerPoint. The different sets of figures that also is dancing around within the nature of my work. And finally, now too, people bring things to the work. So my work evidently is about sexuality, because there was one famous person, talk show host, who, along with her husband, was looking at my work, and she looked at just even a picture of my work and says it makes her feel sexy. I've had some of that shared with me by women who've seen my work and tell me how they react to the work. Before, I was a little bit reticent to embrace that, but I cannot dictate how people feel as they see my work. And so I think I've said enough. I will entertain any questions.
Yeah, that was wonderful. Thank you. I'm just going to put my start my video. And I know a few people came in late, so I'm just going to show, scroll through these images once again so that people can get a sense of them. But I found that really fascinating, because I guess I've always had an interest in intersectionality in the way that different pieces of art speak to others, but also different ideas and different concepts that emerge out of literature and music and all that kind of thing. And I was just fascinated by, I wondered if literature played a role at all. I mean, you talked about the influence of, obviously, your cousin Dennis Williams and people like Donald Locke and Stanley Greaves. But I'm wondering, did you have any influences that came from literature? Or even Guyanese writers like Wilson Harris and Edgar Mittelholzer?
Well, Edgar Mittelholzer over Wilson Harrison, of course. The Mittelholzer was clearly then one where and the stories, I still have not given it the title, but I still have a painting that I am still planning, that's a tribute to Mittelholzer's My Bones and My Flute. As an actual title for works early now in sociology. I think Chinua Achebe, Things Fall Apart. And so in speaking about fragmentation, and I clearly was concerned with the breaking down of, from colonialism, then Eric Fromm, Escape from Freedom, and what happens because, for example, again, now either words and their meanings. You know, I had grown up for the greater part of my life saying God save our gracious queen, until I landed in America and realized the concept of queen was totally different here, literally in America. So you've got all of these different engagements there. And so despite the breaking down process, I'm still trying to articulate that even within this, there's beauty, you know, within the process. Then I'm daring to, just as how to, we can get into a big dialogue pertaining now to white, and all the debate, you know, is white a color versus all the kinds of things. So yes, there are things in literature that, you know, does pretty much affect me, that influences still my work.
Yeah, I was just wondering because obviously Edgar Mittelhauser, issues of the ideas of fragmented consciousness come through a lot in his work. And so when you were talking about that sense of arriving in the States and feeling disconnected maybe from the society, or I thought that was quite interesting. But also because when you're talking about white, you haven't said the word race yet, but it sounds very much like you're also dealing with issues of race and racism within that political spectrum, but then also thinking about how to transcend that at a spiritual level, maybe. I don't know. I wonder.
Well, Juanita, you are indeed on target. I thought I did articulate it because, quite frankly, dealing with political realities here, I've got a dear friend who, in a political sense, was Republican, and in debate, I thought I understood political reality. So I said, there's no way, for example, President Trump, would win the presidency. And I said, if he wins the presidency, I'll go to Canada. Well, when he did win the presidency, my friend came to me and gleefully says, well, when are you going to Canada? Of course, I said that as artists now, going back into history, we've been iconoclastic, where you've challenged kings and popes, and listen, you wait until I'm done, don't affect my creativity. Of course, in making that statement, as artists, we do play God within the skin of our world, so, hey, give me the freedom. So I said I was going to stay here in America and fight, and this is now another reason why now in doing my paintings, it was now doing it really within this large scale, where I can't divorce myself from the politics of this nation. So my art is indeed a call and response to witness, even though because we're not in a post-racial society that they want to articulate here. So it's very present, even though Philip Pearlstein, as a professor that I did independent studying with, I'm indebted to his love in pouring into me, look, I'm seeing influences of these people within your work. One guy I love was Jules Zalitsky. I'm familiar with him within your audience. You can't outdo Zalitsky. Find your own voice. especially because you want to be doing this abstract work and you don't want to be painting a picture of a Black woman and child. So you've got these interesting kinds of issues coming in. And right now, even with my white paintings, being a Black artist, why do I want to paint white paintings? It's interesting where there was a white female artist who painted a picture of the assassination of Emmett Till, and she drew a picture of him being tortured with a cough on the floor. Why should she be painting that? Because it's the Black experience. So in my white paintings, you know, I'm also dealing with clearly then with these issues then, engaging with the reality of whiteness and, you know, all its beautiful and ugly dimensions inside of it. You come back to white crossing. It's interesting, white crossing was anchored literally in Guyana. I love going to the seawall. And when my aunt left in the 50s to head down to London, you cross the Atlantic. So I loved looking at this crossing, of looking at boats as they go towards the horizon and then disappear. And even though we are on the, we've got a shallow continental shelf where we've got brown water in Guyana, at times looking out at the Atlantic, you look towards the distance, you can see now the shimmering light that's kissing the water. So it's amazing that there was the idea too of crossing this divide, this huge body of water that was separating us coming into America. Of course, white crossing also has allusions though to, you know, the famous Atlantic crossing, going into history. And of course, this white crossing was one of my earlier works where it should have been a totally white painting, but the urge for color was still there. So I brought in now moving from a colorful environment into the whiteness that the Atlantic represented in the crossing. Of course, I've got the center there, and again, you've got figures. Some people see them as, you know, writhing in pain. The kinds of different experiences now as you cross that center divide within the work.
I was wondering as well if you might say something a little bit about maybe the religious upbringing of people of your generation, because something that's really struck me when you're talking about the handwriting on the wall and its kind of biblical connotations is that with Edgar Mittelhauser as well, he had an obsession with creativity as being something that was very spiritual. And it was rooted in the biblical, in John the 1st, it said, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And this kind of idea of creativity coming from a force higher than oneself.
Oh, you are so on target. Actually, as an interesting partake, I grew up clearly as a Seventh-day Adventist, and they were rooted heavily in the book of Revelation. My father, after taking me to E.R. Burroughs, died in an accident. And so I had an uncle, some people who lived in Guyana, we are the ones who manufactured Zex soap. And my uncle was seeing my talent for art, was wanting to sponsor me to come to New York to study art. But now my uncle, who was very big in the church, found out now that I'm coming to America, and coming to America to study art, I would have been for 5 hours doing nude studies. So this boy gonna be seeing, you know, naked women, he's going to lose his soul. And my uncle now was preventing me, well, he prevented his brother from sponsoring me to come to study art because he wanted me to go and teach. And after I taught for 25 to 30 years, then I could go and do my art. Well, I became disrespectful to my uncle. Look, you know, my father is dead. I can be the arbiter of my own destiny. So it's interesting that signs and symbols coming in from the book of Revelation has been fascinating to me. And so I've been engaging with these concepts. In fact, my work is also about time, because through change and decay, according to apocalyptic imagery, then there would be now a translation, according to Paul, from a kingdom of darkness into a kingdom of light. So I'm, for example, fascinated. See, it takes me time, and I'm indebted to materiality in my painting, but in essence, I'm fascinated with even the first beginning of Genesis, then let there be light. And so as artists, we're dealing with light and color. And so these things have been fascinating to me. And in addition to this, when I am putting together my white, I am also making concept also of time, because within now the imagery that came in, I'm seeing and understanding, even through my whiteness, I'm articulating the beauty of God, which, of course, I think of God still in abstract concepts, in that a lot of times, you know, images of God, what comes to mind. So for me, I am truly concerned. In fact, there's a book that I've loved by Kandinsky concerning the spiritual in art. So it's a beautiful question that you've asked, because I, after imbibing a little bit of art history, I found a way of, in this case, pretty much going beyond abstract expressionism rhetoric, going beyond color field abstraction. I'm hoping to also make a call and response to the body of contemporary abstract paintings within the nature of my work. So yes, I'm concerned nonetheless to, even through this whiteness, I'm still concerned with beauty. And the sense of scale this audience is missing. I never forgot when I had an exhibition in Anchorage, Alaska, and one of the fellow artists, Arlington, let me show you the places that I photographed. And we came around the bend, and I came in contact with Mount McKinley with its snow-covered peaks. And there was this no sense of awe within nature, you know, where it's beautiful, but then now you find yourself going beyond now beauty in this sense of awe, and there's a kind of a timelessness that is there. So when people walk into see my white paintings, this sense of scale, this sense of physicality, to the best of my knowledge, no other person now in the history of white paintings have done now white paintings this large and in this scale. So I was hoping now that I've blazed a new trail within this area.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, it's interesting because when I see the vastness of this, I haven't traveled to rural America, I should say. So I'm used to the cities, but I haven't traveled to rural America. And I'm wondering, maybe there is a similarity between the landscape there in Guyana. But what these paintings just made me think about was the vastness of Guyana. You know, there's something when you're placed in Guyana, everything's on such a huge open scale. You know, it's just so vast. And that, as you say, there's something about awe and timelessness, but also spirituality that comes into that type of nature when it's on that scale. So I love this. I love the hugeness of the canvases that you're using here. I wanted to ask you as well, because you haven't mentioned Frank Bowling yet. And I'm wondering, you know, what is the influence of Frank on your work?
Well, it is interesting, and Frank is truly very dear to me. It's interesting. I was still a student in New York when Frank had his famous large-scale paintings at the Whitney Museum. And when I went in to that exhibition and saw the scale of his work, it's like, well, for me then, Frank is one of Guyana's painting gods then in terms of the language within literally then Frank's work. Of course, it's interesting that was familiar with Frank's work, but I also subsequently had been an assistant for Frank in his studio in Brooklyn. And the truth of the matter is that Frank is the one now who stretched because if we go back to Pathways 2, it's a 10-foot by 11-foot painting. I'm
wondering if we have it.
Pathways. Yes, you did have it in Pathways. Here it is then.
Yeah, this one, yeah.
That painting then, that's 10 foot tall by 11 foot across. And this was the size of one of the paintings that Frank had called Polish Rebecca. And the gallery, and this work was rolled up for 40 years, and they rolled it about 10 years back, and Frank is the one even who told the gallery about myself, and I'm the one who stretched the painting. And that painting sold for £385,000 and made news with the BBC. But the original frame for Polish Rebecca, Frank had it in his studio, was going to be thrown out, and I says, I'm going to take that. And so I now began, I would not have done large paintings save that I had gotten the empty stretcher frames from Frank. So I'm clearly indebted to Frank, therefore also doing things with this sense of scale. The 20-foot large paintings, you know, this is territory that Frank has literally in thread. The one thing I could say is that he has always been encouraging. In fact, Frank has been so encouraging of me that Frank has even bought one of my paintings You know, when he saw it, he says, boy, man, look at this painting, man. You know, I want to look at it and learn some things from it, man. I want to purchase this painting from you. And so Frank is the one who, as I've been going through different processes, said, boy, you need to still now find a studio to be able to clearly do things. These large works were done in a huge studio that I had in Jersey City that allowed me now to paint these large paintings. Spaces as a premium here in the New York area. But Frank has been one who's been encouraging clearly to me.
Thank you for that. And I just wondered if you could say something maybe also about, because I know Dennis Williams, you were saying that he was an archaeologist. And I'm wondering about, was there any, I mean, what were the influences of Dennis Williams on your life? But also just, I think one of the things that's fascinated me about the number of artists that have come out of Guyana is that isn't the traditional kind of job you can imagine your parents saying, oh yeah, go and become an artist. Because most parents are sort of like, go and be a lawyer, go and be a doctor. And I'm just wondering as to what level of support you got in terms of your career, you know, whether it was something the family was all on board because of, you know, Dennis Williams having already kind of maybe set an example.
Well, also very loaded. I did not, when I was looking, the early points of inspiration of seeing the reproduction of Dennis Williams, a self-portrait of his hanging on the wall, pretty much as he was coming back to Guyana, I was leaving to head to New York. So it's still only much later that I finally realized what a towering figure my cousin was. Seminal exhibition in 1950, This Is Tomorrow. His painting that garnered attention not only in London, but here in New York, Human World, is really a massive and powerful painting. And actually, one critic in describing his work is saying, how come a loincloth native from the far reaches of the British Empire could do such sophisticated work? So Dennis,
sorry, I'm just gonna silence. There's somebody talking. I just want to make it turn off there. Okay, seems to have gone quiet. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you then.
No, this is quite all right. So it's only afterwards I was realizing how powerful my cousin was, not only in the area of the visual arts, but within his novels, and then the setting up of Burroughs School of Art, you know, and plus the archaeological prehistoric Guyana book that he has done. So I am pretty much then indebted to that particular I don't know, DNA pool dipping, because he is certainly a very towering figure in that regard.
Wonderful. So I just want to, there's a question that Leila Passard has sent through, and she says, I see a strong cosmological element in your work through its scale, presentation of color, and so on. Is an exploration of human significance, or perhaps human insignificance, in relation to the universe something you've actively explored, or is it more an unconscious reflection?
Wow, literally a beautiful question. Beautiful question, Burnett. In fact, in art history, I was always fascinated by Chinese and Japanese landscapes in which they will show the largeness of nature and the smallness of man. I articulated earlier, that's what I also experienced when I was in Alaska and saw the massive Mount McKinley then. And I came face to face still with literally my insignificance in this regard. If you go back now and look at, at clearly my work, you will notice, and it becomes my contribution to a big debate within art, what constitutes the edge of a painting. So if you go back and look, it's not as evident in my white works, but you go back, you will see a framing where there are colors at the edges of my painting. And when you, it may not be seen as much within the white works, but yes, you go back now to, if you go back to Fire Next Time, okay, here it is on Cave Entrance. You've got, you'll see it more in the color works. Fire Next Time, towards the bottom right and left, you've got blue-green. Go back to Fire Next Time and see here. And at the edges, though, I've got a gold and silver, but then there's purple on top of this. But in essence, when you look at my work, it may be anyway, it may be that within my work, I will show my palette, which is basically then the rainbow. I will do rainbow colors, the primary colors of the rainbow, and from there, mixing, other kinds of things. But dealing specifically with cosmology, I am fascinated with that. Whilst I was in Mexico, for example, I loved astronomy, and looking out into the southern sky, I saw the Milky Way galaxy in its most defined nature, and I began marveling that here I am, part of the Milky Way galaxy. We all are. Actually, even our solar system is like a cosmic speck within the southern part of the Milky Way galaxy. And to know now the Milky Way galaxy with over 100 billion suns is just part of another 200 billion galaxies, the Andromeda, the spiral galaxy. And so for me, I was looking cosmologically at the sky, and never, about 10 or 11, I felt something cold touch me on my thigh as I'm enjoying this cosmology, and I looked down. It was a stray dog who came and touched me with his nose to let me know that he is there with me, and he began sitting on his hind legs looking at the sky. I won't get involved in a further discussion of what dogs see and understand, but based on that cosmological view, I don't know if I'll be able to find it, I began meditating. This is what the Impressionists were seeing. So I painted a picture called Starry Night, Starry Night, that was triggered now from this grand cosmological sense of wonder that, you know, one had. There's a painting I have called Starry Night. I think you did go past it a little bit earlier. So yes, as I also mentioned to you, because I believe, for example, that beauty tends to be within the realm of philosophy, aesthetics. But for me, beauty should more be in the theological realm. Here's the picture, Starry Night. And the inspiration, of course, with the title coming from Vincent van Gogh, it was now triggered looking at the night sky, and this painting literally, you know, came as a result of that experience. But I believe firmly, now still dealing in a cosmological sense, I'm in awe with the transcendence of God, but I still believe strongly in the concept of the immanence of God, or the nearness of God, because I have seen him within my experience, and my creativity is a reflection of his, except that I couldn't do it by words, you know, like let there be light or let there be abundance, literally then coming in. So in a cosmological sense, I believe in the beauty of God, who goes beyond time. And in the cosmological sense, I believe that we, or through my art, there's a way in which, in a very tiny fragmental way, I'm touching the face of God.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I was kind of, you know, when you were talking about eschatology, and if I understand the meaning of it properly, I'm thinking of it as the final destiny of humankind. And I guess there's a sense of wonder in your work. There's a great sense of wonder and meaning. What does it all mean, in a sense? But I wanted to bring in Stanley, if I can. I don't know if Stanley's online. Stanley? Yes, I am. I wondered if you had any, if you wanted to respond.
I have lots of things.
Wonderful. Good. I like that.
It can take us another day. Anyway, major thing is, it was a great pleasure and delight to see the range of your work, Arlington. And you are obviously a past master of understanding the nature of paint and what can be done with it. And you've chosen your particular way of dealing with it. Anyway, I have a cosmological question for you, statement. Now, you've done these paintings in white. And of course, people are asking you, why haven't you done paintings in black? And I am putting it to you that you now need to do paintings in black, simply because the universe, the original color, well, color is a strange word to use for that, but the color was black before there was light. And that goes back to the time of the Egyptians, where the god Atum had a thought. And from the thought, the world was created by the words, by Tha. Tha was the one who was into the thoughts of Atum, and he used those words in order to create the world. So now, there in the Bible, I think it says somewhere, there's darkness, and then there was light. So darkness came before light. you need to do a whole series of paintings based on darkness, full stop. The next thing is...
well, could you pause just briefly, Stanley? Juanita, could you go back to Fire Next Time?
Yes. Actually, I was very interested in that painting. I wondered if you could say, obviously it's a quote from James Baldwin.
The title Fire Next Time, interestingly enough, becomes an article. Baldwin Fire Next Time. However, yes, actually this painting, I was indeed going to be doing a black. Normally when I'm painting, I told you I paint on a white ground and then I bring in my colors. This painting was a total beautiful black painting. Actually, I did a residency that I didn't put within my bio, where I was using golden paints, and they brought me down to their factory in upstate New York, and I did a mini residency there where I engaged with the chemists who went through, you know, the different paints and mediums, because in essence, I deconstruct the process of painting within the nature of my work. And the CEO, Mark Golden, says to me, Arlington, you know, we want you to do some work. So I did this total black painting, and it was beautiful, but somehow this urge for color was still there. So I painted over the black painting, because you're beginning to see to the right of the painting areas of blackness that was truly then coming through. So yes, Stanley.
Yes, we need to see black paintings now. Huge black paintings covering the walls, 9 feet high, 20 feet wide. We need to see that. We need to see then how you are going to, because the universe, we're dealing with duality. The universe is about duality, and opposites exist and they have to coexist. And that is why earlier on, very earlier on, I came to the conclusion that God and the devil have to coexist. When I was at St. Stanislaus, I used to ask myself the question, why, if God is all powerful, he can't throw the devil into hell? Anyway, never mind with that. Another thing for you. Another thing for you. In the write-up for your work, you refer to as a Black artist. And I want to know, what is the relevance of that title? What relevance does it have? Why? And do you accept being referred to as a Black artist?
Well, Stanley, the truth is that we are indeed within a society, being here in America, where those definitions are clearly present. It's a reality that we have to deal with. But in the navigation process, I would say that to some extent, we speak about Guyana, land of 6 peoples, and so we may be accepting of a whole number of things. My uncle was married, the owner of the soap factory was married to a Guyanese Indian, Aunt Doreen. And to me, she is the sweetest aunt that I've had. And so there could have been really an embrace, but when we come here, I think things have become more pronounced. I don't know about your experience or the other listening audience. You know, there are times where we may have had still problems in the racial divide. I'm thinking about the 1960s per se. But nonetheless, coming here, that is a reality that one has to face, because there's one point in time where Black artists will only get exhibitions during Black History Month. To make things even more poignant, is that one time at Auburn University in Auburn, Alabama, they wanted to do a Black history show. And then when Dr. Thomas heard about me, saw my work, she realized my work wouldn't fit in. So she says, you give a solo show at Auburn University. So I gave a solo show of my work at Auburn University and even lectured on what is Black art. It's interesting that the white art department, now seeing my work, hadn't seen such sophisticated work, and so they made it mandatory that their students come down and listen to my lecture. And the person who was responsible for having me show at Auburn University got fired because she did not bring in Black art. My work wasn't wasn't really Black. So you know, there are a few changes now where the work of Black artists, there is energy within the work of Black artists. So now lots of galleries are embracing the work. And in fact, my God, and if I'm not mistaken, Basquiat has now gotten the highest, 100 million, I think, or 110 million was the highest price ever for artists here in America, you know, white or no, well, there's no person Black approaching that scale. So
that's certain true, but I don't accept those definitions. I don't accept those definitions in the US because they're limited. They're not looking at the cosmological implications of Black and white. They're reducing it to a very low level. So I dismiss that. Anyway, the other thing is part of the notes, a quotation from a Black artist says that you need to erase all isms, meaning isms in your work. You need to erase that.
I need to erase what?
You need to erase all isms like monochromatism, impressionism, all those isms. You need to, modernism. The statement says you need to erase all known isms. Now I want to know, how on earth are you going to begin to work without considering those isms that came before you? As a matter of fact, those isms are conditioning you even before you begin to work. So I would take a umbrance with the person who made that statement. And the other one was that you must eliminate what qualifies as a narrative. Now, how can you eliminate narrative when the narrative is your actual life? That the narrative is the foundation of the human psyche. We all have to tell stories. So that artist had be very rude and to say that person's an idiot. And the next one was,
well, sorry, Stanley, I must have missed it. Where are these, where are you reading these statements from?
Okay, well, Nita is coming from an essay on white balance that was clearly then written in. And
yeah, so that's where these statements are coming from. And I immediately latched onto that because as far as I'm concerned, and I'm being very rude here, it's total foolishness. Erase all known isms. What's that? Elimination of the narrative. Your life, your very life is a narrative. So he is asking you to eliminate your life. That's crazy. And the other thing he was saying was to learn to live by the philosophy of jazz. Well, I can only interpret that to mean that he's talking about the intuitive way that manifests of playing, that manifests itself in jazz and jazz competition. In other words, he's elevating the intuition to a very high level. But then again, he is not aware of the duality of our existence because intuition has to go with feeling. Now you are a painter of feeling. I am not. I have to deal with that. Unfortunately, I'm not a painter. I have to deal with ideas. But the two things are linked. You cannot separate them because intuition as well as intellect is part of the work you do. In my case, it's more one than the other one. but you cannot separate the two. In other words, you cannot either separate black from white. You have to deal with both of them. Both of them.
May I say something, Stanley? I was reading the Mahabharata, and I was pointed to a passage that Edgar Mittelhauser was particularly interested in, and the passage says, "Do not be blinded by the pair of opposites." And I think it was this idea that he grew up believing in a pair of opposites, but as he realized over time they could be transcended, and actually they were on a spectrum.
Of course. Well, that's what yoga is all about. People
Yes.
don't, the funny thing about yoga means how to link the dualities. That is what yoga means.
How to link. Okay.
How to link dualities, and there are as many forms of yoga as you can think about. You know. So as far as I'm concerned, if I'm speaking for myself, I'm saying my yoga is about working and making things, not about, all kinds of funny movements. Yoga can be music, dance, like the Sufis, dance as a form of transcending joy. So the idea of thing for me, is not so much eschatology as ontology, living. So living, really, the essence of it is the transcendence of dualities. And we as individuals, we each have to find our own particular way of doing this. That's what we have to do.
Can I bring Arlington in? Arlington, do you have any response to what Stanley's saying?
Oh yes. I mean, it's and of course, I'm hoping the audience won't be bored. This is still though the father for painting, and of course, as Noah mentioned to you, some of the moments in life. I remember. Was 2000, it's been 5-6 years ago, passed through North Carolina, spent overnight by Stanley, and you know, have the privilege of truly engaging really with him. And yes, as an artist, he is a deep thinker. As I mentioned to you earlier, then he's still engaging with his political art, and he speaks about thinking. Yes, art is also an intellectual activity. I would disagree with Stanley. His work is complex, but people are still also moved by your work, Stanley. Yes, there is this emotive quality that I have built into my work. When you see my work, you see the sense of tatility within my work. I mean, a father died, but we're a family of 8. My mom, beautiful, saying, you know, had the family together where we were feeling, hugging, touching. So when people see my work, there's this irresistible urge to want to caress its surface. I feel, you know, painting is supposed to be sacrosanct. You shouldn't be touching it, but invariably, that's what people would do with my work. Whilst my work was on display at the Brooklyn Museum, even though there were docents around, I stayed about an hour to see how people react to my work. And within an hour, 12 people came by and was attempting to rub their fingers really across the surface of my work. So my work does involve this emotive response, but based upon the earlier statements of Frank and the question from Bernadette, there is indeed this sense of a topography within the work. Of course, most of the time when you look at landscape painting, within the mind, the view sets up a hierarchy, or the artist does that, where the thing that is closest to you has the most detail, the most preeminence. So you've got foreground, middle distance, background. You see things in relationship to yourself. You stand in front of a train track, and you know, as it goes towards the horizon, it comes to really one point, the one-point perspective. But when you are painting, as I am painting, you flip the script where now you're looking down this lateral spread, this topographical view. So there is a wide vista within the nature of my work. Well, dealing with methodologies, I work flat because my work does involve, well, Guyana is a land of many waters too. So my work is about water and settling sediments. These are the kinds of things that I do within my work. But when I work flat now, there is an interesting translation on your working flat. How will this work look when you now frame it and put it vertical on a wall? So there are still complex navigations that come in as I am painting. Frank also paints, flat, but then he puts it on the wall and he works back into it. When I paint flat, and then like these large white paintings, I have them stressed, placed upon a wall, but there's nothing else that I could add to it. For example, these white paintings, they were rolled up for 6 years. The curator had seen this work and immediately he wanted to say, man, this work needs to be shown. He had an understanding of the history of art and white paintings. For me, after seeing these paintings unrolled 6 years later, it's like a beautiful resurrection. And as an artist, you want to be true to yourself and the images that you're doing.
I'm going to
I look at myself, I feel my imperfections. I see my imperfections, but when I look at those paintings, I see them as perfect paintings. I can't add anything else to these paintings. Go ahead, Stanley.
Yes, I'm saying, it's interesting you're saying you're painting flat and all the rest of it. Your paintings need to be touched because of the quality of the surfaces. Now, you made a very interesting—
I missed that. My paintings need what?
Because of the textures of the surfaces of your painting. They invite touching. Now, I'm saying, putting another thing to you. Instead of the paintings hanging on the wall, why aren't the paintings on the floor so people can take off their shoes and their socks and walk on the painting? Because then it would create the same sensations in their minds and in their feeling, the same sensation as you when you're painting. And that would be a 100 total sharing of your work. Let them walk over the paintings.
That's a challenge right there for you, Arlington.
You'll be entering into this fantastic artificial world they call the art scene.
Well, okay, Stanley, part of what happens—
participation of a highest level to allow the people to not only to see, but also to walk, touch over the paintings.
Well, Stanley, you've gotten into something else there. And obviously, within art, there's an elitism in art. You're going back to the history of art. They're separating now art from crafts. So even though paintings definitely should be sacrosanct when they're placed within gallery walls, when they're placed within museums, and so the touching is ready, even though it's nice to think of someone possibly taking their shoes off and walking on a painting. The only thing that has happened now is you getting into now the concept of markability of work. And so does somebody think of walking or something as being valuable? If you got an expensive rug, you wouldn't want people to clearly then walk on it. So you get into clearly
the value is in the experience of walking. That is the value.
Yeah.
That is the value. And then you can determine how your work you can determine how your work is to be shown. If you tell the museum people, this is work to be walked on, they have to allow the work to be walked on. You know, so you can determine, you determine that. You determine those parameters, not the museum. You know, and if the museum tells you they can't do it, well, you take it out to the field, on the road, into the park, and let people walk over it. You know, because
you're reminding me a bit. That's a bit like Errol Brewster's art.
Your understanding, a person's understanding of the work is the widest extent into which they can participate. So this thing about looking at your work and not being able to touch is crazy, because your work demands, I use the word deliberately, your work demands touching. And I'm saying, what better touching it is by your feet, because your feet are grounded on the earth. Gravity, your feet are grounded, and the sensations you're going to get from your feet are something else. Try walking over broken seashells on the seawall, or as I did, try walking over rocks under the water, the sensations you get of sand on the water. So this is enlarging the experience of your painting from just looking. Looking is not enough. As far as I'm concerned, it's not enough. For my work, yeah, you can look at it. That's it. That's fine.
Arlington, notice he doesn't want anybody to walk on his work, but he wants them to walk on your work.
Because my work was not designed with the intentions that he has, and the perspectives that my perspective is totally different.
Yeah,
it's totally different.
Arlington, I wanted to ask you a question about this particular painting, actually, Cry of the Martyrs. I was interested in does any of your work speak to the history of Guyana, or just to the history of the Black experience?
What, my work?
Arlington's work.
It's an interesting question that you ask, because you see those Black shapes while I was in Mexico, okay? I saw this, there's an area of the beach in which I saw just total blackness coming from the ocean on the beach. And I kept thinking it was black sand because, of course, Guyana, for people who weren't in Guyana, we had very good bauxite because it was, you had to dig deep, you had to dig through layers of sand, and so there are different colored sands that we've had. Now, I've heard that we had black sand in Guyana, but I've never seen black sand. So something possessed me. I began now taking a spoon and digging this black things and putting it now in 5-gallon buckets. And now I put these black images in my work, because up to that point, I was not using black at all. Okay, and then possibly even talking about that, even coming back to Donald Locke, Donald had a way of not only using white, but using black, where he was using black like colors then. So there's some other challenges, either coming back to Stanley and black work, and Donald now, because of certain strengths and weaknesses, was able to be a master with really black and white. Few people can be able to measure clearly than that. But for me, this thing I'm discovering afterwards, coming back to New York, a geologist says, what you put there in your painting was not black sand. This was no volcanic ash, because where Mazunte was, directly opposite on the Pacific Ocean, is where the volcano was in Hilo, Hawaii. So when the volcano will now erupt, the Pacific Ocean will stand down, literally, then that volcanic stuff. And this is now what I ended up now putting really within my paintings and mixing with colors. And of course, you know, someone, of course, then looked and felt they you know, looked martyred like, monk like, and so, you know, cry of the martyrs, came up literally as a title. And if you also look carefully, I did not have as much materials as I did in New York. And so to the left of the figure, well, the first figure to the left of it, the figure at the bottom on its left, that's actually now coconut bark that now I've embedded within my work. All along in between there, my friend had a coconut tree that was short. I would climb up, drink literally coconuts, and then clearly, you know, painted these works. Look, if I'm to be honest, I had an experience though in dealing with now transcending time, and when we talk about transcending time and also cosmology, it's also having the way of seeing the invisible. If you go back to white stones, which I began talking about, this large painting, I was painting in Mazunte, and I was doing some small paintings because I brought a friend who was handicapped from New York down to Mazunte, 6,000 miles, brought him there. I was painting outside in the dry season in Mexico. I had a number of small paintings, and then I had one large painting like this size, Cry of the Masters. I'm painting outside. The birds were very aggressive. They'll fly by me and says, this is what I think about your painting, and make some dropping. So I now began covering my painting, and I put in a lot of money and materials into one large painting. Okay, here is coconut bark in this cocoa haven, and those shapes are shapes from the coconut tree as I was drinking coconuts and painting outside. Anyway, part of what now happened was that I had one big painting, and early one morning, the breeze began blowing. I had done layering for close to a month, 6 weeks on this painting, and I thought now I had a beautiful masterpiece. The wind began blowing, and it was about to rain. By the time I ran outside, the wind blew down and dropped on my painting. It was a vinyl plastic. I am painting with acrylic paints. It stuck on this particular acrylic painting. I tried gingerly to raise it up. I couldn't do anything. This painting was now ruined. So pull the thing up, poured water on the painting, and now I'm going to the beach, and I am as mad as ever now then, you know, shouting out to God on this beach then, you know, you whispered to me that I brought your handicapped son here, you're gonna bless me, and then now I painted a masterpiece painting. You couldn't stop the wind from messing my painting up, and whilst now there is like early in the morning, barely morning light coming in, this person came up to me, and I realized he wanted to talk. No speaker the Spanish. He turned and said, I perceive that you are a spiritual man in English. And that arrested me. And I had one of the most deepest theological discussions. His name was now Eduardo. And now it's interesting that we're talking, you know, go study nature, go look at this, look at that. And then all of a sudden now I'm seeing these two tracks on the beach, and he says, this is a mother turtle. She came to lay her eggs, you know, after 30 years, they come to the same spot, but somebody either disturbed her, so she didn't lay her eggs, she turned and went back into the ocean. I says, look, let me go and get my camera to take a picture of these turtle tracks, and then I get a picture of you because we're having a wonderful discussion. I was just a block away, ran, got my camera, and the way in which this cove was, I went back and it's not there. There's no boat to see him out on the Pacific Ocean. I would have seen him. And how the place was, there's no other place he could have disappeared to. So I'm running up and down the beach. Eduardo, there's no Eduardo. My friend bought 5 acres of land from the fathers of this village. I says, man, I want to meet Eduardo again. He calls me to, so my immediate problems. He inquired, there was no Eduardo there. Now in my meditations, the following morning, one final thing though is that when I went back, was looking at the painting, a guy came up, says, what are you doing? And I'm still pissed. What do you think I'm doing? His wife saw me painting and I says, okay, I was trying to paint. He says, let me see, I'm a collector. So he came over, took a look at this flooded painting. He says, I want to come back and take a further look at your work. So my meditation that morning now, it's like, I heard you fussing at me. I sent my angel to pretty much then comfort you. And that guy who stopped, he's like my son, he can buy a painting from you. The guy came, bought a painting from me, and I made some towers outside so that the birds wouldn't affect me. And now the money is all gone. I ran into a guy in Mexico, in Monterrey. Okay, you fussed at me. I'm going to really bless you. You call Arcadio and ask him to send you $2,000 worth of materials, and he will grant it. This will be 20,000 pesos. Guess what? I says, man, the devil is either playing with my mind. And this guy met me for an hour as I crossed over into Mexico. Who in their right mind will send me this amount of money, 20,000 pesos, not only tell him to send you that material, no more than $20,000, $2,000, you wouldn't pay him for another 3 months after you get back to the US. And it's like, oh my God, who will do that in their right mind? But this thing stayed with me for a whole week. I called Arcadio, or rather email him, and didn't hear from him for a week. Finally, I got a call. Arlington, what to say? I grant your request. I hope it's not too late. My sister, she was getting married from my house. Arcadio sent me $2,048 worth of US materials. Renee's Angel, Cry of the Martyrs, Rainbow Haven, he sent me this work, plus he sent me materials. I want you to quote out 30 paintings and give to your friend. God gave me a dream of the beautiful painting he was doing. And so I don't want you to pull up shop yet because I was participating in this Brooklyn Museum show. So now that painting, Starry Night, there's this guy and his wife who came in and saw me painting, liked the work. And then he was Green Mountain Gringo, and then there's one called Turtles Cove. So now he sent me this material, and I'm dealing now with one experience. I want you to mix up these paint. You fussed at me, I'm going to help you. So this guy asked me, how long does it take for you to paint? Okay. Sometimes I do a lot of layering, waiting for it to dry and relayering of work. Sometimes it can take a week, 2 weeks. You can work with a work for 3-4 weeks. Here I put now, after getting this material from Eduardo, I put up a 7-foot by 9-foot painting outside. I had my paint plus Green Mountain Gringo that you showed a little bit earlier, and just follow my directions. Lay colors here, lay colors there, and I'm running between 2 paintings. This is at 6 o'clock in the morning. By the evening, the painting was now done except now for drying. And this guy who asked me how long it takes for me to paint came to me and pointing me with his finger saying, "You're a big liar, man. I saw this white blank canvas. I passed by here at 6 in the morning. By evening, then I come by and I see this glorious work. Look how fast you made a big painting like that." Of course, he didn't even see the second painting that I done. Finally, I says, "Look, I had a pretty experience. I believe now in angels. I saw one. I got directions. I followed directions, and this is what you see before you. So when you see my work, I believe that after this painting, I honestly believe that angels come behind me and says, let's help this fellow along then, because in producing this process, my work does look like a natural phenomena. So there's mystery that still happens in my work that if I were to tell you I'm doing exactly this and exactly that, I would be lying. So within my works, there is no this other element that I've got to acknowledge. Otherwise, so I believe now, without question, in my immediate experience of a deeply personal God who is concerned even for the smallest details of our lives. And I was blessed with this talent for art. It moves people, and it enriches me to know that I could then move people and they could see my work. And so I would truly want to thank you for your comments. Stanley, thank you, Juanita, for the reactions that you picked up in my work. Bernadette, for these are the things that I engage with. These are the things that move me. And the Greek says, to thine own self be true. It's nice now to come and look at your work and be moved by it, you know, having been done 6 years later. In fact, many times I come to my own work and I'm even asking, how did I do that? None of my paintings that you've seen that I could redo. There's none of my paintings that I can clearly redo exactly. And that's another reason why I love the medium of abstraction and what it does as a mind engages with it.
Your work always speaks to you. When people sometimes came to me and work on the wall, they want to buy this or buy, I said, no, I'm still having a conversation with the work. Because sometimes you're gonna do things in a work and you do not realize that it is there until something in your consciousness allows you to read the work and realize that there is something there. And I did put it there and it has a lesson. It has a lesson for me. And I can quote a number of examples of my own work like that. But coming back to these questions of Black, amongst the Sufis, the mystical arm, the high mystical arm of Islam, Black is the color of knowledge. And they are the ones who in their floors, in their meeting places, organize the flooring in the black and white tiles to show that the two move together and they have to exist together and interact with one another. And that is the background behind the game of chess, because the game of chess involves the movement between the black and white squares, between the black and white elements that provide the energy. The pieces moving on the chessboard provide the energy that unifies the black and the white. As a boy, I used to help my father paint signboards, and I fell in love with the color black. And I still do use black quite a bit in my own work. It has an inherent, very strong inherent power. And I think the power is there to be utilized, to be understood. This is why I am putting it to you. I'm mandating. I'm speaking now from my chair. I am mandating you to
Mhm.
do a series of paintings, black paintings,
Blackface.
investigating the nature of black as you did with white, the textures,
Well,
what can be
Yeah,
okay,
Stanley,
Stanley, let me
can I,
respond.
sorry, can I just
Yeah,
hold both of you a
what-
moment? Arlington, I just wanted to let you know that you've been referencing Bernadette, and I just wanted to let you know that it was Layla Passard that asked the question, not Bernadette. Bernadette
Okay.
isn't online. But I also wanted
okay, I'm
to
sorry. Right.
that's okay. I also just wanted to find out if there was anybody else online who had a question that they wanted to pose to you. We've got about 5 more minutes, so I didn't want to round off before checking if anybody else had any questions. It doesn't look like it. So yeah.
Let me give a brief response to Stanley. I appreciate the challenge, Stanley, and in fact, still from a cosmological level, I have still been ruminating on the biblical prophets who speak of clouds and darkness that surrounds God. And so there's imagery that still comes in within also the book of Revelation, where the darkness becomes the hiding of his power. One theologian says that if God was to be seen in his unabased glory, he will destroy all creaturedom. So I am, this is why originally when I spoke about the Black series of paintings, I will accept your challenge and hopefully produce Black paintings to raise you on. But I'm also seeing Blackness on the scale because, well, the truth of the matter is to, in conversation, I've got, my mind is like a 200-lane highway then of titles of paintings ready, even with whiteness. But interestingly enough, when now thinking now again of clouds and darkness, we're dealing with dark matter. And so I've been reflecting upon those things. And so my Black paintings hopefully would embrace the whole concept of literally then dark matter, and you know, all that's really involved within dark matter, where all light is pulled in and pretty much then lost. So I am thinking also still cosmologically then of Blackness and the scale of those works too.
Can I ask you, Arlington, just to shift a bit from all things cosmological and spiritual, etc. I want to bring you back down to the material, and I'm interested in the period that you went to America and the whole. I mean, I guess you would have been caught up in the whole civil rights movement. And just because you know, when you reference the title of James Baldwin's book, you know, The Fire Next Time. Yeah, I'm just interested in how you think that has influenced and shaped your life.
Well, of course, I ended up now not necessarily doing it in upon the Negro spirituals, The Fire Next Time, even though for people who may not clearly then know, James Baldwin was really quite an intellect, and I even was remembering him engaging with an ultra right-wing conservative James Buckley in you know, the television you know, talk show. So Fire Next Time, it's not water, but Fire Next Time has been there in the milieu. Actually, Frank has a painting called Fire Next Time. So many times too, with some of my titles, it's still also like in the Negro spiritual, a call and response.
Right.
So my Fire Next Time was a response to painting of Frank by Fire Next Time, like for example, Dutch leeching I have another painting that's mainly brown that I call Double Dutch, and Frank had a painting there. So there are these interactions truly among artists. I've not done a painting yet well, I have done it in a digital form to respond to Stanley, Shadows Among Us. Okay.
That references Mittelhauser as well, though.
Well, you see, now I didn't know that one. I didn't know that. I'm glad you brought it. But Shadows Among Us. So just like how, for example, Donald also had a painting called Shadow Under, and I was saying, Frank wasn't aware of it, but the psalmist, I think it came attributed to Moses in Psalms 90, you know, under the shadow of God's wings. So there are all these different kinds of things where I still am not isolated. I'm still part of a group of deep thinkers. And in this case, then Stanley's work, I must even admit there are times where there's still a puzzle to me to be able to understand all that he's articulating. But then it also brings me joy. And finally, to make a comment, Dennis Williams had said it to Dudley Charles, where Guyana has, and it's even more so true now, we have had a set of artists who could stand their own within the international level. Of course, we've got Frank as one. We have embraced, even though I think he's born originally in Scotland, but raised up in Guyana, we've embraced Hugh Locke. You've got Andrew Light. You've got Carl Hazelwood. You've got Dudley Charles. Artists of power in the international scene. There are others that I'm literally forgetting now. So I'm happy to, normally I don't like talking about my work. I prefer my work to speak for itself, but in a very special way, I must thank you, Rod and Juanita, for you know, pulling me into this space, because a lot of times I've not been social because of having trypanophobia, fear of needles and pain. So I've been hiding from the dentist, as it really were. So I want to thank your audience for being engaged and listening. And
we want to thank you. There are comments. Bruce Nobriger is saying we could listen to you for many hours, that this was an amazing lecture. Georgina says thank you for an enlightening sharing, and also extending that to Stanley as well. So everyone's enjoyed it, Arlington, and we're really very grateful to you for sharing your art and your knowledge with us and your practice with us. It's been really fascinating, and I hope you stay in touch, and I hope you join us on future Guyana Speaks as well. Stanley's become quite a regular, of course, and we always love having Stanley join in and speak to other artists as well. So that's been an extra special pleasure for us.
I'm happy that you did involve Stanley, because interestingly enough, art is still first and foremost an intellectual experience. You actually paint with the mind in this complex relationship of the mind and hand. Of course, I'm forgetting now, how could I forget, you know, the author Dennis Williams, truly then you know,
And
really.
Aubrey Williams. I mean, I don't want to throw another artist.
Aubrey Williams. Sorry, I was meaning
yeah,
Aubrey
I think you're
Williams.
referring to Aubrey. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm referring to Aubrey and the month of work there, and we still have got other younger literally then artists. Bernadette Pascal in Guyana. And then you've got still, you know, artists in Guyana. Of course, Guyana is still truly though affected where in growing up, I didn't necessarily have a tradition of seeing and understanding literally then great art. You know, one had to, you know, come out. But via this Guyana Speak, for those who might be listening in Guyana, I'm still concerned that there could still be a giving back to help even those in Guyana in this regard.
Well, I'd like to wrap up. I know Stanley has Stanley, you have a final word, right? Can you wrap up in a minute?
Me?
Yes.
Well, I was good seeing Arlington's work, the range, because I hadn't seen a lot of his work before. And I congratulate him on his output and his dedication and the sensitivity that he brings to his work. You know, I remember one time he did express the idea of us having an exhibition together, which would be great because then I can show my small paintings as opposed to his large paintings.
Yes.
And then, of course,
yes.
it would be a case of seeing a dialogue between the two different approaches, And I did do a series of paintings based on shadows, which were generated by reading of what I feel is one of—
You did a swim basis upon what? I missed that word. What did he say?
Shadows.
I did a series of paintings
shadows.
based on shadows. One of them is on the wall behind me, which is a shadow of Saint Sebastian being nailed to a wall. I did a series of shadows which were instigated by the reading of Shadows Move Among Them, which is my favorite novel by Annette Walter. And then I also did a series of 24 paintings which related to reading 26 novels of Wilson Harris. And the 26th novel still defeats me. I can't find something to deal with that. You know, hopefully something will turn up. But thank you very much for sharing, your work with us. And it's good to be able to see the kind of work which I am totally incapable of doing, but which I can become involved with at a certain level, of course. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stanley. And Arlington, as you can't hear the crowd, I'll do the clapping for them, but just to say thank you so much. And I love the idea of Stanley's of your huge painting speaking in tandem with his small ones. That would just be fabulous. Yes. And I feel like there's a lot of similarities actually underneath it all. There's a lot that speaks to each other, so I quite like that. But yeah, thank you so much, and thank you to everybody who joined us online today. Hopefully, for those who are in the UK, see you at Border Bazaar on the 9th of December. But yeah, good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.